Well, Charles, if you had held on to that 1967 Ford GT500 Super Snake, it would be worth $2.2 million today, but that's irrelevant because it's Bill Clinton's 80th birthday.
It's amazing. I mean, the guy, it's interesting. He, in his book, My Lies, and also in speeches, he talked about the fact that his own family line, at least his paternal family line, the men died early of heart disease. And then he had in 2004, he had his first bypass. And then he had several other problems, going way back when, and now here he is, 80. Um, I think that the Bill Clinton policies of 1993 to January 20th, 2001 would be deemed by the Democratic Socialists and even the moderate Democrats today as right-wing extremist policies. Bill Clinton. I mean, remember he dissed Sister Souljah in the campaign. He was tough on crime. Remember the crime bill of his locked a lot of people up. And indeed, it was actually Donald Trump who ended up pardoning a number of the many unjustly incarcerated blacks that were put in prison really by Bill Clinton's policies. And you can go tick off a list of the things that he actually implemented. And then you go back and you look at Trump now. Many of the problems that he's dealing with are Obama and Biden era problems. Some are problems of his own making. But back between 1993 and 2001 January, the United States was literally on top of the world. No thanks to Bill Clinton. I mean, he walked into office with the Soviet Union blown up. In 1993, the Chinese were still eating dirt sandwiches along with the Indians. I mean, both economies were minuscule compared to what they are now. Europe had not yet unified. And the United States was the sole superpower, having kicked the living shit out of Saddam Hussein, to everyone's surprise, in the 1991 Gulf War. And look look where we are now.
He looks skeletal in this picture. Look at this from People magazine.
Right.
Doesn't look good, does he?
No, he doesn't. And
there's been almost, sorry to interject, Charles, but there's been almost no, you didn't hear about this today. Bill Clinton turns 80. And this is even mocking him. He's saying Bill Clinton's milestone birthday leaves Obama as the only living president under 80.
Yeah. Well, yeah, W. Bush is also 80.
I guess.
I think he is.
Unless they don't count him as living. Brain dead still counts as living.
No, he is. His birthday from memory is in June or July, so he would have had his 80th birthday. But in the case of Bill Clinton, if you read, there's several books. The Secret Tapes, I think, is one book that goes through in excruciating detail many summaries of the many interviews that Taylor Branch, the Pulitzer Prize-winning author, had with Bill Clinton when he was president. And it shows very clearly that even before he took office, Bill was very concerned about his legacy. He had studied presidential libraries. He had read the theory of presidential biographies. And he had enlisted, before he was sworn in, Williams and Connolly, then a rising and now a powerhouse law firm, to think through with his team how best to capture his legacy, which had not even been attempted at the time he was talking with Williams and Connolly because he hadn't been sworn in yet. So you look at this man, and he's flown all over the world. Forget that his hobby of chasing any tail that is not nailed down. Forget that. In terms of leaving behind this museum and this archive so that scholars can study the Clinton years as they will, for decades, he has done an epically piss-poor, assholic job of complying with the law that pertains to presidential libraries, presidential records, presidential archives. And it's almost as if somebody said to him, listen, we know exactly what you're up to. The cat is the lion has left the cage because you've been marauding all over the world in Arkansas and elsewhere, and we know all about that. And so, to make sure that we are able to control you, you're going to go off and you're going to break every law that could possibly be broken in terms of charitable solicitation, reporting, um, in states, to the IRS, to federal governments. You're going to everything that you could possibly do wrong. You're going to do wrong, and you're going to leave documentary evidence of all this wrongdoing for people eventually to care about once you're either dead or deemed not to be irrelevant anymore. And it's just shocking to me that as somebody who went to Georgetown and was a Rhodes Scholar at Yale Law School and all these accolades, I have met people in my life who are very smart, but they're evil. And I think for some of what Bill Clinton did to people like Juanita Broderick, whom I've spoken to personally several times, and Kathleen Willey and other people, and Paula Jones and other people like that, yeah, that part of his life is evil. But it's just astounding to me that he would think that he's going to get away with this. A man who cares about his legacy so much, his legacy is going to, it may take more time because he appointed so many people, and Biden and Obama followed that up trying to cover up this mess. But eventually the truth will out. And W. Bush, it was a W. Bush, yeah, running against Gore, I think. W. Bush was asked to sum up his view of Clinton in one debate or another, and I think he said, "So much potential to no great purpose." And I think that, I'm not a huge fan or a fan at all of W. Bush, but I think that's a good summary. I mean, here's a guy who people who have met him, opponents and friends alike, all say that in his prime, he was magnetic. He would walk into a large room of people and connect with everybody. People would hang on his every word.
W.
No,
Bill.
Clinton.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so to leave this kind of a mess behind is just, forget all the money that Chelsea or the IRS will eventually get. To have served in all these high positions, to have had an opportunity after he left now 25 years around the world with this stupid fucking mess of a bunch of supposed charities. What a tragic waste.
Well, I mean, I think he thinks he's done great. He's 80, he's rich, he was the president, he hasn't been prosecuted. It's kind of a message to whoever is going to be the president that you can be a gigantic criminal and nothing will happen.
Well, you contrast him with, for example, Rajat Gupta. But our viewers may not remember that Rajat Gupta, in his prime, served, I think, 3 4-year terms as managing partner of McKinsey, which is a private consulting firm still today, that is immensely profitable and immensely powerful. It advises governments and multinational companies, you name it. It also has an investment fund for its principals that has achieved remarkable rates of return over long periods of time. And, in my mind, calls into question how much of those returns have been derived, in part, maybe using inside information gleaned from the consulting. But Rajat Gupta, when he is Indian from the subcontinent, when he was made managing partner, it was the first person of color ever to run McKinsey, and there ensued a period of time where he was running McKinsey and he was involved in charities and side business ventures, and he was on big boards like Goldman Sachs and Procter and Gamble and other things around the world. And he was all over the fucking media. I mean, he was on magazine covers. He had I think he had like 8 or 12 Blackberries for all the different things that he was doing. He was Superman until he was put into prison. So why did they go after, Rajat Gupta, who, by the way, in 2001 in January worked very closely not only with Bill but with Chelsea, who worked at McKinsey. Why do they put this person of color in prison for actually less heinous crimes, I would argue, than what Bill's been involved in? I mean, now that we can openly discuss COVID, and think of it, we really couldn't do that in 2020.
Yep.
We tried. Your
Got
channels
kicked
were shut
off.
down.
Yeah.
Right. How many different times? But
Oh
now we
my
can
God.
openly discuss it, right? And uh, and COVID certainly was horrible, but it's not like it was the first mess that Fauci and Birx were involved in. The first one was HIV/AIDS, where they pushed medicines that had not been tested properly. And some argue, and I'm not a scientist or a doctor, so I wouldn't be able to convincingly offer evidence and debate people on it. But others who do have these type of credentials argue that the medicines that were pushed out by Bill, by George W. Bush through PEPFAR in the early days fighting HIV/AIDS with lots of billions of dollars, that those medicines, in the case of the ones provided by Ranbaxy, were not medicines at all. They were adulterated drugs that kill people. In the case of the other medicines that were touted by Fauci and others, some argue that these killed HIV infected people faster than they would have died without the medicine. So this is uh, I have, just because of the way I was brought up, spending time with a nuclear physicist, I have immense respect for honest people with professional credentials in the sciences. And Bill Clinton has no such credentials. He's a fast talking bullshit artist. So, selling this whole idea as he did, that all we really, it's a very simple thing. The pills cost, let's say, 20,000 per year to fight HIV, mind you, not AIDS. No pills fight AIDS or have anything to do yet that cure AIDS. The pills for branded HIV back in late 90s were, call it 10 to 20,000 per year, just the pills. And I've got pills over here that are made in India that will only cost you 300 a year. Look at what a genius I am. It's preposterous bullshit, because in the first instance, the pills that Bill was touting as being available from India, you had to pick them up on a loading dock in India. The branded pills they were talking about in America that's the cost inside America. So in the first place, how are you going to get these pills in India? How are you going to verify? And I have had a fair amount of experience in India, including visiting multiple plants of a company on whose board I served for a number of different years. And the challenge with that is that India is a very poor country, even today. And so if you've got pills that you're producing in bulk, and those pills are sitting in, let's say, an outbound section of a factory, it's not like they get loaded on a truck in 1 2 hour session. It's a continuous process of getting those pills off the loading dock into trucks. Okay. And these things have value. And the people driving those trucks are poor. And you could easily imagine a process by which somebody pays off a truck driver to steal drugs that, let's say, have been checked and replace them with other drugs. And you pay off the customs person, and you pay off, and you pay off. And so, to actually make sure, on the one hand, that the pills that are being distributed, thanks to your contacts as Bill Clinton with all these donors, to ensure that those pills, when they reach the interior of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, where there are no roads and no doctors and no nurses and no electricity and no hospital beds, is fantasy. It's pure fantasy. It was fantasy in 2001, and it's fantasy today. But if you go and you say, "Look, I'm a former president. What I'm going to do is build a library in, Little Rock, Arkansas," what happens? You see what happens with Joe Biden. Nobody has any interest in Joe Biden's library in Delaware. And it's like, I think people today, you don't really need a library anymore. You could, on your phone, you can get almost any book you want, or any study or whatever. So Bill, and he writes about it. His friends who've written books about him, all say that Bill was struggling. He realized back while he was president that nobody would get all excited about a library. So he needed some, gripping causes that he could raise money for. And he picked HIV/AIDS. And he made it was a disaster what he did, in my opinion. Then that wasn't good enough. So the nitwit Ira Magaziner said, well, why don't we fight climate change using a model that even now, I think it is the UN has said that the model that was being used to make sure that AOC had a chance to raise $93 trillion to fight climate change, that model has been wholly and completely discredited. So fucked up HIV/AIDS program that killed people, thanks to him, right? If he had done his work properly, if he had sat there and said, I'm a thoughtful guy, let's bring in some experts here and let's really think through the HIV/AIDS problem and what we actually need to do to cure it. You would say, in the first instance, let's make sure that when we're testing for HIV and AIDS, and mind you, papers I've read suggest that Africans and Caucasians and Asians have different body chemistry, slightly different body chemistry. And so, the test that you're going to administer to a Caucasian pool might, yield certain types of results. And if you use the same exact test on Africans, you might get a different result. And so you've got to adjust for all that kind of stuff. Of course, Clinton didn't do that. And worse, what I've read is that the tests that were administered in the West are very high precision tests. So they're good to test, apparently. The tests that are administered in Africa are dumbed down tests that are not very precise, that will yield many false positive results. So you go and you strap an adult in Africa and you say, look, you've got HIV, you're HIV positive, and we've got a way to prolong your life. You're going to have to take this pill treatment for the rest of your life. Let's say over time it goes from being a death sentence getting HIV positive to you can live for 50 years on this treatment. From the standpoint of a pill producer, that's great.
But doesn't it also give them an opportunity to say, oh, we need millions of dollars to fund this program in Africa and just give these people pills who they don't even care about, but they get the millions of dollars.
And I know I'm jumping around here, but you see in Zelensky, the Zelensky Ukraine cause is another example, right? You have in Ukraine a hopelessly corrupt country. In the last 24 hours, another woman, government official, has been put away for stealing money in Ukraine, high-level government official. You go to Africa, where many countries in Africa are almost as corrupt as America. 20 years ago, I couldn't say it that way, but America stands revealed as a hopelessly corrupt country. And you go into a hopelessly corrupt continent, and you say to the leaders of these countries, there are 50 plus leaders, we got this deal over here. It's based in Switzerland, and if you don't like Switzerland, we can do Cayman, where we can get you. You say you have an AIDS problem, we'll give you $300, $500 million a year, and you don't have the people internally to administer the program. So we got this guy over here, Ira Magaziner, or somebody like him, and he will interact with the UN or the World Health Organization, and we will put the reports he's going to put together. They are so fucking glossy and gripping, and they don't tell you anything about the corruption, which is the best part of it. And these reports will be everywhere. We'll have Bill Clinton will come in, the press corps will be there. You can give yourself a participation trophy for fighting HIV and AIDS, but you're going to have an AIDS problem for as long as there's funds to fight the AIDS problem. And that's basically what has happened since the creation of the Global Fund, which is an epic disgrace about which Chelsea Clinton, I think, has written a master's thesis and a PhD dissertation about the Global Fund, extolling, the performance of this epic fraud.
Well, it's one of those things, right? I mean, if somebody writes a dissertation or whatever you want to call it, saying the Global Fund, oh, yeah, and everyone's like, oh, yes, the Global Fund. I know all about that. Excellent work. Because nobody knows anything about this. They just don't want to appear to be an idiot. Real quickly, Charles, did you know that this defense minister in Ukraine called for a wartime election, so they fired him. And
Yeah.
then they fired that woman was the associate defense minister or something. Oh, wait a minute. This guy was something to do with the cyber defense. So they fired him. Interesting. I mean, this is like the walls are closing in on Zelensky, but just back to Ira Magaziner for a second. I don't remember if we discussed this, but in the throes of the Epstein investigation, or whatever we want to call that, the Epstein files, this email came out from 2002 where Ira Magaziner is saying, "Hey, Giselle, how you doing? We've been making good progress on the AIDS initiative. I've been back to Rwanda and Mozambique twice since we last talked, and we're having good results in both countries. The more time I spend in Africa and in other poor countries, the clearer it becomes that effective investments in health and education are essential before they can advance. I hope you are well. Please give my regards to Jeffrey. I look forward to hearing your thoughts about your next steps whenever you formulate them." This reads to me like an email written to be found by someone in Discovery or something like that. I don't know.
What is the date of that email?
December 23rd, 2002.
If you could send that to me offline, I'd appreciate it. That's great.
Sure.
Now, I mean, again, fighting AIDS is something nobody has done. Arresting or stopping the evolution of HIV to become full-blown AIDS is something that scientists were able to do in the early 1990s. So to send an email saying, he's fighting AIDS, no, he's not. Guy's a fucking more. And this guy has been so sloppy his entire life, Ira Magaziner. He was a Rhodes Scholar. I think after that, he tried to reinvent, I think it was New Bedford, Massachusetts. He destroyed that place. He was the leader of Hillary Clinton's healthcare task force, where he was really trashed by one judge for denying that the people who were working on this task force were government employees when they were. And because they were, you had to be honest about what was going on in the proceedings, which were all held in secret. His healthcare plan was roundly destroyed by the right and the left. He then became the internet czar for Bill Clinton. Who knows what he was really doing there? And then, starting in January of 2002, he worked on this HIV/AIDS program, which has never actually had the kind of reporting that is required. I mean, he developed this idea that he would band together a whole bunch of countries who would give their 5-year forward projections to these drug manufacturers and say, if you drug company will sign up to we'll let you sell us 5 years demand of HIV drugs at a discounted price. And if you're a generic drug company, you'll say, well, Jesus, I'll do, you're giving me the projections for how much you need inside your country, and you got donors who are going to pay me. This is fucking awesome. And there are reports, and even in the press releases that the Clinton Foundation HIV AIDS initiative put out, so there was like a FAQ thing, frequently asked questions, and one of them was, aren't you concerned that by lowering the price so much of these drugs that you're going to put these manufacturers out of business? And the Clinton Foundation insane answer was, no, because we've engineered it in a way so the drug companies still earn a profit even at these reduced prices. So, okay, you're admitting that what you were doing is you were a business development arm for Ranbaxy and the other generic drug manufacturers. That's not charitable.
Yeah, that's what he was talking about when he and I had words at where was that? The Beacon Theater. But Charles, we need to make our way over to the First Amendment Forum right now. People are going to join us there on crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com and subscribestar.com and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. I want to talk a little bit about this House of Representatives report on Sandy Berger's theft of classified documents and the unanswered questions. Have you seen this report?
Please send it to me offline. Yeah, I have seen it before. I haven't read it carefully though, and I
We'll
don't
talk
do
about
that.
it a little bit. We'll be right back.
Yeah.
Stay with us, everybody.